at the forefront. We have been working incredibly hard to get a good outcome on this issue, and as a farmer, I know how important it is that we can access good labour. We worked very closely with the sector, very closely with farming groups, including the National Farmers Federation, to land on what was a very sensible outcome of 19%, agreed by industry, and a good outcome. However, politics is the art of what's possible, and we now have a 15% rate. It's a very sensible outcome. It's a good outcome. Compromise is reality in this parliament that we have before us, and what we have is an outcome that's going to deliver for farmers and workers out in our regional communities.
Right, we'll take a few questions.
Can you give an absolute guarantee that the number of backpackers won't drop off next year?
Well, obviously that is in the hands of the backpackers themselves. What I can say quite clearly, that at 19% we had a competitive rate, both against New Zealand in that net take-home pay section, against the United Kingdom and against Canada. So most certainly 15% will be even more competitive against the United Kingdom, against New Zealand and against Canada. Therefore, really it comes down to backpackers and what's in their mind, how much money they want to take back. Noting that Australia has a higher base rate of pay, therefore you get even though other countries might have a lower tax rate, they also have lower pay. And what's the ultimate objective of most backpackers? Well, it's to see how much money actually ends up in their wallet. And one of the other advantages, of course, that comes with that is as the exchange rate goes in our favour, they get even a more accentuation of that differential.
Mr. Joyce, impressive as you're gathering years, isn't this really the Pauline Hanson backpackers tax?
Well, obviously the legislation that is before the Senate and will come before the House is legislation that was drafted by the coalition, the National Party and the Liberal Party in coalition. That shows quite clearly our intent to always resolve this issue. Now, you know politics as well as anybody, and it is a game of the numbers, and it's a game of making sure that we honour our commitment. We could be belligerent, we could be obstructionists, we could be stubborn and hurt so many people. We chose not to do that. We chose to resolve this.
Mr. Joyce, what is your message to farmers today who are furious at the way the coalition has handled this issue over the last 18 months?
Well, I'd say to farmers right from the word go that we were the ones who put $40 million on the table to resolve this issue, not the Labor Party. We were the ones who stated quite clearly we'd resolve this issue, not the Labor Party. The Labor Party was the ones who brought about this rate in the first place. They were the ones who went to the election booking this rate at 32.5%. They're still the same ones who have never actually showed us where their budgetary savings are going to come from, even though they talk about wanting to secure our AAA credit rating. We have shown a good intent, and we stated that we would resolve this thing by the time the 1st of January came, and that's precisely what we have done.
That's happened for a year.
Can I ask you, are you aware what Senator Nick Xenophon's demands are for the Murray-Darling Basin, and if so, can you tell us what they are?
Well, no, look, I'll go through 3 issues that were brought up. One was the redesign of the Menindee storage lakes. We are already doing that, as in we are going through the investigative process, and there's money set aside to do precisely that. That is already part of our calculations, or what we hope will be our calculations of 2,750. Another issue that was brought up was the Barma choke. We're already investigating that, in fact even looking at putting water through the Deniliquin irrigation system so as to deal with that constraint measure. Another issue was the Yarrawonga levy. This isn't able to fit within the prescription of what is required for the 450. So the 3 issues that were brought up are either ineligible or already being dealt with.
Mr. Joyce,
And that's where we'll leave Barnaby Joyce there, speaking primarily about the backpacker tax. It looks like now the legislation currently now before the House is a 15% rate. Labor is still pushing for 10.5%, but the coalition is confident that the 15% will pass Parliament. That'll obviously cost a little bit more in terms of the budget, and the Treasurer Scott Morrison was asked about that today, and he said that'll come out in the budget in December. The estimate's there.